Hey guys, ZCrazyG here. So Beenox a couple days ago put out an official statement on their social media platforms regarding the future of CTR Nitro Fueled, stating that the update in late March earlier this year was in fact the final update and that the game will no longer receive any more content drops or further updates. Now, I personally had accepted it was over for a long time now, but many still felt left in the dark by this due to the lack of communication. So this announcement has finally allowed us to close the book on CTR Nitro Fueled, as it were, and regardless of my acceptance of the fact that the content cycle ended months ago, seeing the confirmation of it's over, that's it, the end, it's still a bittersweet feeling to say the least. Mainly because of how much this game meant to me and how it's impacted my life. And as a final tribute to this game, I want to share with you all why I will always consider this game so special to me. I'll start by taking you back briefly to the early 2000s, to a point where I was around 4-5 years of age, probably no more than that, to one of my earliest memories in life in general. I very vividly remember watching my older brother playing the original Crash Team Racing on Tiger Temple. This is not only my first memory of the game, not only of any Crash game, but of any video game in general. This was my introduction to the medium of video games. For years onward, I continued to watch him play, going through the adventure mode, time trials, cups, and all that stuff. I would always watch him play many other games as well, but CTR was the one we probably came back to the most. That is until I myself would be willing enough to pick up the controller and actually try to play. Naturally, I wasn't very good at it, being my first ever gaming experience, but as I played more, I became better, and I remember the day very specifically when I beat the final boss race against Nitrous Oxide for the first time, and that was just such an awesome feeling. The first time in a game that I'd really sort of beaten it or achieved like a hard goal in a game. So from this you can already tell that I hold an extremely nostalgic attachment to it. And as we grew up, me and my brother would still come back to it, this time playing together. And the older I got and the more I played, I learnt more about the mechanics, the drift boosting, the sacred fire, and coming to recognize what made this game so amazing. The incredibly well-designed and satisfying controls, fantastic track design, and incredible use of the Crash license. The game's controls, while not as accessible as other kart races like Mario Kart, it felt so much more rewarding and gratifying to master and to play. Simply put, there really is nothing quite like the feel of how CTR plays, and from that I held the game to a very high standard of quality. And it was also through this game that I was introduced to the Crash franchise, and it led me to playing the original trilogy and then the post-Naughty Dog games. And with my already established love of 3D platformers, I fell in love with this series there and then. So all these things together is a huge part of why I loved the original CTR. Now, when Crash made his comeback with the Insane trilogy, a remake of CTR I knew was something that not only I wanted, but I knew for a fact so many others did as well. And that's because of just how fondly loved and how well the original has held up even to this day. Despite being nearly 20 years old at that point, it had remained one of the most celebrated kart races of all time. It truly had stood the test of time and was still being played to that day. So when we all heard the rumours that a remake was possible, it was so incredibly exciting. And then on December 6th, 2018, I think I've got that date right, it came true. The remake, CTR Nitro Fueled, was announced. To put it simply, I can't really describe how I felt when that announcement happened. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning where I live, and I was just elated, obviously due to my love of the original, and I had to try so hard not to scream in excitement. And to see it revitalized and looking so fantastic with the announcement of an online mode, oh god, it was so cool. But then of course, it didn't end there. As the build-up to release went on, it became apparent that this wasn't just simply a standard remake of the original title, but so much more. We then got the confirmation of the inclusion of every single track, kart and character from Crash Nitro Kart, the reveal of the insanely varied and really deep car customization, and to top it all off, during E3, the announcement of a season of brand new post-launch content with the Grand Prix. Man, it was so cool. It was just incredible to see the team at Beenox were going above and beyond with this one, pulling out all the stops to ensure not only an incredible recreation of a beloved game, but to expand on it to such an admirable extent. And then the fateful day rolled round. It was the 19th of June last year, I think, and we got our hands on the game, and it was everything that I'd hoped it would be, and I fell in love with CTR all over again. Beenox had managed it, despite some caution from the fans about how well they would replicate those controls and that really satisfying feeling, while not making it one-to-one exactly. Granted, that would have been an extremely difficult task. They did an immaculate job, retaining the very core of what made CTR the long-lasting success that it always had been. Because Beenox were dedicated to fine-tuning those mechanics to such a high standard, making sure they incorporated everything about that control scheme to the last detail, it made for such a fluent transition from the original to the remake. Not only that, but then the incredible visuals gave the game that modern lease of life it desperately needed, with a commitment to detail that wasn't necessary, but one that is so appreciated. The Nitro Kart tracks too were so much better than they ever were, this time married with the more smooth and fluent control style, and the changes to improve the overall track flow, like fully realizing the full potential of all these courses. And the car customization, that was one thing that was so much more fun than I ever thought it would be, and it added such a sense of personalization that no other kart racer, at least in my mind, has even come close to. And then it just kept going. The season of post-launch content with the Grand Prix events each month, and they added so much more content, like more tracks, characters, karts, customization items. It was nuts. And how they used that opportunity to bring in so many elements of Crash's history together in one place, like turning the game into a celebration of the franchise as a whole. And all of that post-launch content came for free, mind you. Beenox's love and dedication for this project is what made it a success, and I believe it was so much more successful than anyone could have ever expected. Now, to say that it was perfect would be blindly ignorant, because let's be honest with ourselves, it wasn't. Like most things, it of course has flaws. The online mode specifically really wasn't as stable as we'd all wished, and the lack of any variety in the game modes throughout the content cycle, just sticking to the standard races and the battle mode, was quite disappointing. Though granted, the online mode was still functional, and it was still fun to hop into these races and have a blast with other players. It was still fun, but it wasn't as good as it could have been. And then you have the things like the imbalance of the item distribution, the really inconsistent matchmaking. The addition of microtransactions was never really a big deal for me. Granted, I wish they were never there at all, but because it was a modern game with an online multiplayer component with like a big customization feature with so many different options, like yeah, it was an inevitability. It was so obvious it was going to happen. Though, for the most part, I will honestly say, I barely even remember that the microtransactions were there. They were never that intrusive or forced on you. Though granted, I do wish things like the 1 per coin earn rate offline would have been more generous, and that we didn't have like a rotation shop system, just let players buy what they want when they want. On top of that, there's still the occasional hitbox issues, the really long loading times, and debatably, the way the Grand Prix were released one after the other in very quick succession did kind of lead to a burnout with the game for many players very quickly. But though I still acknowledge these issues, I can still say that I believe that the good of this game far outweighs the bad. And while it is a shame that we now won't see these issues fixed, I can still look back on it and confidently say how Nitro Fueled is such a great game for how much it got right. And above all of that, what really makes CTR Nitro Fueled so special to me was the fact that I got to share this journey from before its release all the way to the end with all of you guys. At the time I started making content on Nitro Fueled, my channel was incredibly small, and though I never had any intention or ever wanted my channel to revolve around a particular game or franchise, my love and excitement for this game, and for the franchise in general, drew me into making content for it. And the way you all responded with so much support that you all continue to share so much to this day is what kept me doing it. I'm not a big YouTuber by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm still so happy and grateful for the love you guys show my content, and CTR Nitro Fueled is really what began that and has led to where we are now. To be part of this fan base is so awesome, and to share the experience of the content cycle, while anticipating all the Grand Prix events with you guys, and getting to interact with so many other amazing content creators during that time. Wumpa Lewis, The Viperian, Canadian Guy A, Mr. Bo, The Real Neil, Lil Grey Fox, Geordie, Kindred CVS, and that's just scraping the surface. These guys were all fantastic in helping to bring the community together through YouTube content. And I'm so grateful to all of these guys, and to all of you as well, for making me feel welcome and part of this community. And a lot of that is all because of CTR Nitro Fueled, because it brought us all together. And that was such a big part of the experience of playing and enjoying this game for the past year. Because of how good this game was, the way it encapsulated everything that made the original perfect and expanding on it, my nostalgia, my love for the franchise as a whole, and the experience of sharing that with the community and all of you. That's why this will always remain one of my favourite games of all time. And yeah, it still has its flaws, I will never deny that, but to me, it's not too much of a detriment when I reflect on this game as a whole. And I now want to take this quick opportunity to say a massive thank you to the team at Beenox for their incredible dedication and hard work into making this game possible. Thank you so much, every single one of you who worked on this game, and I wish you all the best for your future projects. And it's because of that dedication to creating a quality game that, despite seeing this come to an end, I don't think this is goodbye. Not really. Much like how the original CTR endured and stood the test of time due to its incredible gameplay and legacy, I'd like to think that CTR Nitro Fueled will too. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe if you feel like it, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, guys.